you're not a leader in my head if you don't have followers. And the follower doesn't mean they just like you who you are and the title you hold. The following is in form of your thinking, your practice, the things you wanted to implement, and they have strong input into it. So as collectively you start to work and create that motion. So to me, leadership is all about creating the followership. And when you have that following, you will be a successful leader itself too. When I got into this role, and one of the individuals, person was also in a leadership role, and he goes to me, Peter, do you think who you look like has an advantage or disadvantage to you as a leader? I'm a person of color, and I think that was his connection to it. Is that an advantage or a disadvantage? I was honest with him. I said, you know what? When I walk into a room, it's possible what I look like, who I am, people might have very low expectations. And when we start to actually tackle with the issue on hand, problems on hand, and tabling some of those creative ideas and thoughts and thinking outside the box is my opportunity to turn that tide around. I believe I have an advantage because I'm walking into a room with a low expectations. I'm walking out of that situation head up and with an advantage on my side itself too. And we just laughed it away. But it stayed with me. That person asked me this question because it was a very important question. And these things have stayed with me over time.
I've always been fascinated by the various sizes of school districts and how they're run and what their culture is like. And I've known Peter Singh, the executive information technology officer at Toronto District School Board, for a good decade or so. And I'm fascinated with the way in which he creates that culture, even in a district so large. And so that's a big topic of our conversation today. But Peter's journey is, I think, quite interesting. He tells the story of how he began in his role, which is pretty inauspicious, if you might say, for somebody who's leading such a large and significant education entity in Canada. Peter's a great person, and you'll get a sense of his genuine authenticity as we speak. Just a great conversation today with Peter Singh.
Peter, even though you hold a fairly high position in the Toronto District School Board, I know that you are always trying to make everybody else look good. That's been something I've appreciated about you over the years. So maybe talk a little bit about how you came to be the CIO of Toronto District School Board, how they got there, and what you've seen along the way.
No, thank you. First of all, Dean, thank you for giving me the opportunity to sit down, have this chat and discussion and catching up on things. It's been I will say, amazing journey over the years. I have been in different roles within TDSB. And if I tell people that when they hired me in 1992, it was a peak of a recession, and the person goes, I don't really have something you're looking for. Your resume says that you are a C++ programmer, but I don't have anything in programming. But I do have something for you in data entry. I see you got an amazing keyboard skills. And I had put my speed down, how fast I can type. He goes, I can use you there. Are you okay with that one? A kid out of school looking for work. I said, yes, I am in. Next day I started. The very first day, somebody left their department in field services side. He comes to me in the afternoon. He goes, one guy just left me in the other department. Are you interested in doing field services work? I said, I'm in. That's how my journey started. And I was with the Etobicoke Board of Education. And over time, I think I had amazing leaders around me. And they saw some of the things I brought to the table, just a fresh thinking, different ideas, willing to work. And whatever task they will throw my way, I always take it on with a smile and do my best. And that opened up more and more doors over the years. And when we became TDSB in 1998, I was one of the 5 senior technical guys who were assigned to put TDSB technology together. So that was an amazing opportunity to showcase the skills and project management, technical side, leadership skills. So I was going around and consolidating 6 school boards into a single entity, starting with that admin side and then moving on to the academic side. And that work took for 10 years, from 1997 to 2007. I remember the last project I wrapped up on May 14, 2007. And at that time, the senior manager I was working with, he goes, "Peter, what do you want to do next?" And I said, "We never restarted our project management after Y2K. How about starting project management? Love to do that work in that area and build the practice." And I moved into that space, and then the leadership opportunities opened up in 2010. And since 2013 or so, I've been blessed to be with the privilege to serve TDSB in this role. So it's been a fun journey, but very much connected literally to K to 12 over the last 30
Yeah.
years.
I love that initial story about your keyboarding skills landing you a job.
Yeah,
Because I remember too, I took keyboarding in high school
yeah,
and I was on a typewriter. So I
that's
was not
right.
on a computer, it was on a typewriter. And I think I got it was my lowest mark in all of high school, was like 58% or something like that. And yet that skill that I didn't realize at the time has served me well. I can't say that it was the key factor in it getting any job,
Yeah,
but it's interesting how there's lots of things we do along the way that we don't really realize maybe the impact, but reflecting back, you think of the learning experiences we have and how they've served us today. And I think it takes somebody to be reflective. It takes someone to be thoughtful in order to understand how those all together. And I wonder how your role how your role has shifted over the years. And I don't mean this in terms of your duties.
yeah.
I think I'm wondering more about when you took on, so you're 11 years into this role. Even over the last 11 years, Peter, how is whether it's your day to day or just your purpose and goals and mindset changed in the last 11 years in this role? What's changed?
I think few things have shifted, and you change as you grow as a leader too. And some things have stayed consistent. So I will start with the things those have really changed in my practice. When I moved into this role, I thought I was more in the firefighting mode, like literally fires happening all over the place. And I have a mindset that you got to put structures in place. Otherwise, running a complex shop like TDSB, we have 240,000 students to serve across 582 schools and 40,000 plus staff members, literally 300,000 people playing in your sandbox every single day. So if you don't have good processes, controls, and checks in place, you're not going to survive. So when I inherited, there was a lot of fragmentation. So over time, that was my goal, is to put some solid practices, frameworks in place. Over time, those have evolved and the department has got better, and good structures have really helped us to grow as a stronger team. I believe the pandemic was also a very good thing from IT perspective, because it did give us an opportunity to showcase what can we do at a very high speed. And to me, that really transformed us from a firefighting mindset to a true business partner mindset. We are now considered as a true business partner by other departments. They have challenges, they ping us, and they want to sit down, have a discussion, not expecting that we're just a break and a fix shop. No, we are actually a true partner in their own digital transformation also now. I think that has been a big shift. What has stayed consistent as part of my practice is about caring about others, the people side, and strong networks, and not just internally, even externally. All key tier one, tier two, tier three service providers. My goal has been over the years to have a healthy relationships with them, because you will always need help inside and outside. So the human factors has been consistent in my own practice. How do we actually keep healthy, good networks in place? The third piece is I always believe that a happy workplace is where people want to come in every Monday. And again, going back to the very first job I had, one of the senior supervisors in that area used to play music every single day in the room. I couldn't understand why you will be playing music when people are working. But over time, I realized this is a very good thing to have it when you're in your motion, you're doing your things, you're troubleshooting. The music really helps you to keep going and put you into that groove itself. And one thing I asked him saying, what is your true intent when we come in? Because every morning we walked in, he will have coffee ready for all of us. The first thing we did, have a cup of coffee, 15, 20 minutes, catch up on the day or so. Then we left and did our things. And his thinking was, Peter, I want to make sure when you guys leave on Friday with a happy mindset, you're willing to come back on Monday to continue the work you left on Friday. So that happiness in the workplace, right from the beginning, was in my mindset that wherever you go, you have to have that happiness around you. Then people start to connect with you, the work, and eventually the work will happen because we're all technically very strong. The work will get done. But how do you create that culture of happiness around you? Then people are happy to work with you and want to be part of your environment and aura itself too. So that to me has been consistent over years in my own practice.
That's powerful. And it reminds me of, I think, First Nations principles of learning and some of the traditions there. One of the things that I learned early on in my days at the district, working a little bit with our First Nations and Indigenous learning, was that whenever they led a meeting, it always started with, how's your family? And they just said that there was no point in us spending time together as human beings if I don't know who you are as a person. Because otherwise, you're just an employee, a number, whatever way in which I think Western society is using us to just advance capitalism. I'm not trying to get too political, but it was just a very beautiful thing that just said, no, if we're going to work together, let's talk a little bit. Just like you and I, we spent 15 minutes talking about all of the woes of Toronto sports and then maybe some ways it might come up because as much as I want to talk to you about work, I want to know some of the things that make us human. So I love that you've done that, Peter, and that you've kept that. And I think that speaks highly of your department and all the work that you've done. And I know you're generally speaking, you're a strong advocate for technology, and you're also a strong advocate for empowering teachers and students with technology, which is not always easy, especially in the size of district that you work in. But I wonder about if there's anything that kind of is on your mind in your day to day that worries you about, that you think about in the near future. Like, what are the things that concerns you 3, 5 years from now, specifically with things that relate to your role?
There are a few things really bother me a lot, and one of them is shrinking budgets. We are, as a society, we are not investing enough in education. And that's one thing that worries me. Other piece is, I think it's on everyone's plate, which is around the cyber threat landscape. We are under threat all the time and become a target. And it's so hard to protect everything all the time because one single user who might get compromised, one single click knowingly, unknowingly, can let the attackers in. So your castle is never protected. So to me, cyber threat landscape is another piece really worries me. I think we need to get a lot more controls in place, help from external entities, government controls, and the bad actors need to be chased out of this one because it's turned into another profitable industry. And that's not a good thing when it comes to ransomware attacks and things like that. That's one. Second piece that's really worrisome. Now, we have a lot of hype around AI, and it comes with a lot of positives, and it also is a little bit of a threat too when it comes to education because we look at a newer technology that it can do the legacy things. We were sick and tired, we were bored out of it, and let this technology do that. But I honestly believe that the basics, 101s and fundamentals in education still needs to stay. They cannot be replaced by AI. The students, the learners have to have those basics in place. Then they can actually work with the technology and understand what else can be done. They can raise their game plan. Technology should be augmenting their thinking, their practice, their thoughts and ideas. It should not take over them, right? So I'm worried about the negative side of it, that people say, this can do my homework, this can do
Right.
that. You still have to have some input into it. So I'm just worried about the negative side of AI in the next few years. There are positive. It's opening up new doors. There will be new roles in place. There will be a new way of looking at the problems. But some of the things to me needs to stay in place to build that capacity, because if you don't have a solid foundation, then you might struggle in other things. So education is all about building a solid foundation in you as an individual. And then you inherit all these tools to actually do the things you need to do in your life. So that's another side of AI I'm worried about over the next few years until we sort this out. It reminds me of late 90s when www came into our lives. We were so worried about that kids are going to copy and paste and they're not going to think about it. And they're just going to grab content from somewhere else. We're not going to be able to figure it out. But as a society, we got used to it. It turned into a norm. Now we can't live or breathe about it. And the web is such a big part of it. Now it's turned into a very powerful business platform. All our transactions are happening online. And knowingly,
Well, and it,
unknowingly, we have now adopted that technology as part of a lifestyle. And I'm hoping the impact of AI will be also more of a lifestyle in 15 years, 10, 15 years from now, when we get a chance to connect. We'll say, yep, we saw it coming, but we were more worried about it, the negative side, but it has a very positive impact on us as a society. So those are the few things on my mind as part of the future.
and those are three pretty big pieces. Probably the cybersecurity is the one that most of us know least about, because again, I credit people like you who take what is a pretty anonymous kind of thing and work on it behind the scenes so that those of us who are working with kids or whomever don't have to think about that as a front and center concern. But I know for a fact that that's a concern that happens, and it enables us to do that work that we want to do, and don't have to worry about the kind of threats that are there, but I know they're there. And yeah, and that, I think when we talk about the AI, and it's been a big part of my world, certainly of late, is finding more and more that number one, we need to have lots of conversations with people because people have all kinds of concerns with it, and rightly, and those concerns need to be talked about. They need, and because when you mention no, not letting go of some of those sort of basic things that we need to develop as humans, there's a nuanced conversation there, right? I was in Ottawa this past weekend and just great conversations about where's the line between getting AI to help me with my work and not? And it's not a simple thing that somebody can just say, here's the right answer to that. It's nuanced, and we need to engage one another. And then also create the safe guardrails so that we can ethically and responsibly use these tools without the cybersecurity threats and without the threats to our humanity itself. And that again is a very nuanced conversation that we just have to involve more and more people. And that's one of the things that becomes difficult with the larger school district that you're talking about is getting that getting input, because there's no way you can get input from 300,000 people for sure, as much as you want to get as much voice. Maybe that might be an interesting thing to explore, is just how do you, with a district that size, try to include as many voices without it overwhelming you to help you inform the decisions that number one, you want to support, and also communicate the ideas of some of the things that they might not understand in terms of safety. And just when you talked about creating a structure that's going to be successful, that comes with limitations. It's not just anything happening all the time, because that's going to create these problems. So you have to create some structures that a technical person understands and knows. But those of us as users go like, why are they, this seems like a dumb move from our IT guys, but it's necessary. So I'm just wondering about how you interact and communicate with such a large population.
I think you have to look at the layers. When I talk about layers, how do you work with the leadership layer? How do you work with the folks who are in the schools? Then how do you work with the teachers who are in the classroom itself? And then how do you actually engage the student voice and the parent voice? So I think these are all very important stakeholders we needed to be working with on an ongoing basis. at a very high level, to work with the leadership happens with this like a steering committees at a central level itself. I have two I co-chair with associate directors, one on business side and one on academic side. So it's a monthly table and we spend 2 hours bringing all specific agenda items focused on technology, but they're connected to either business side or academic side. That's how we were able to tackle the leadership itself. When it comes to teacher voice itself, we have, I will say, close to 300 teachers. We call them digital lead learners. These are tech smart, digitally fluent individuals who have raised their hand saying, you know what, I want to volunteer myself to be part of this cohort and help facilitate growth of technology across the district itself. So that's another voice we leverage on a regular basis. And I personally spend 4 days with them throughout the school year, listening, hearing them out, seeing them present, and watching and following their pedagogy in their classrooms. So that's another voice we leverage as part of our practice. The third piece is the student voice itself too. The students also have their small bodies, and the central body is called Student Senate. So Student Senate is another space we will go to whenever we are trying to bring important change in our environment and go get their feedback also. Then it comes to the community side, and that's the parents and the guardians also. And there are school councils, and the super school council is our central committee called PIAC. That's where the parents are also engaged heavily. And we regularly go to that table, showcasing, listening in, and also understanding their pain points, part of that discussion itself too. So having these different layers in place have helped us to engage. Another important partner to us is also the unions. We work with the 4 big unions within our own environment. There's 9 overall, but these big 4 covering elementary teachers, secondary teachers, and our staff, which is part of a QP, and our principals and vice principals, part of an association. So we actually have a monthly touch point with these tables also. So whenever there's big things happening, we're going to those tables also and listening in and getting feedback and advice and direction from those tables also. So with these different layers and tables set up, those are our channels to really engage our community and stay connected, stay grounded. And end of the day, we also run, I call it idea bucket. But think about just literally a Google form. So you got an idea, you just drop it in saying, this is the heading or title for my thought. And you just give us a few lines saying, I wish you could do this. So every week or so, we get 2 or 3 ideas dropped in that bucket. And they don't just sit there. Every manager and senior managers in IT receives a message right away that somebody dropped an idea in the bucket. Take a look at it. So somebody will say, oh, this is related to my area. I literally have 19 teams, part of 325 strong team of IT at TDSB. So one of the managers, senior managers say, yeah, it belongs to us. We're going to pick this one up. So that staff voice is captured. And some of them has helped us to start some new projects. Sometimes they help us to kill the fires before they even going to start. Sometimes they say, wow, we didn't think about that one. That will really benefit all of us. What's good for a few is always good for everyone. So to me, we have leveraged Idea Bucket over the years. Since we implemented a few years back, and it has gone up to 600 plus ideas have been dropped in there. But we action every one of them and get back to the person saying, thank you very much. This is what we have done. So that's how we have reached out to our stakeholders to serve them better.
This episode is brought to you by Advanced Learning Partnerships, also known as ALP. We are a professional learning consulting group that serves communities across North America. We are partners, designers, and agents for change. You can learn more about the work we do at alplearn.com. And now back to the show. What would you say, I'm sure there's a list of things, but what is the one thing you're most proud of in your district, and particularly from the IT perspective?
I think one of the things I'm really proud of it that I consider my team is a high-performing team. And the discussion, the topics, the way they look at it over the last 10 plus years I've been able to shift that. So instead of them just doing grunt work, I believe now we're doing really innovative work within the shop itself. So I have seen a huge transformation within IT itself too. And I shared earlier with you that we moved from that firefighting mode to a business partner. So that's one big thing I'm proud of it, that our peers across the district itself, executives from other areas, really lean into us now and has a department saying, we can really use your help and expertise to help us to establish some of the practices you have taken on, successfully implemented it. We'll love to have the same things in our area too. Please come help and assist us with that one. That's the one thing I'm really proud of it, because to me, that was a huge challenge for us. But to see that in action now, and it's just lots of smiles inside me every time I'm in a meeting, they talk to us like that.
That's awesome. Now, let's say the Ministry of Ontario had their own idea bucket for you to fill out. Now, besides more money, which you already told is you need a little more money, what would you put in their idea bucket for something that you would like the ministry to consider a change that would make a difference for kids?
I think it had changed over the years, but if we're talking about today now, looking at the future, one thing I'll love to see is more investment in pre-kindergarten or nursery programs and K to 3. I think we need to invest more in early years and get the students on the right path early enough instead of trying to, I was just going to use the word troubleshoot and help when they get to grade 7, 8, and 9. We're
Yeah.
saying, oh, where are they going to go? What's going to be their pathways? I think that's a bit of a late investment. So I think investment early years or nursery programs, having good daycare ecosystem also is one thing. We'll love to see it. I think the movement is there now. I start to see it. We'll to see more investments in that space itself. So that's one idea. I love to see it. Second one is, after pandemic, we saw real data in our hands where the gaps are around digital divide in the city. And to me, I think we have now moral obligation, because the data is in our hand, to close that gap. So love to see a lot more investments on that side. It might be in the form of one-to-one compute. It might be in the form of a very heavily discounted internet services for those families who can't afford it. So these are the layers I think we'll love to see more investment from the government itself too. And I think one other thing we touched about earlier is around the cyber threat landscape. I think the governments have to make more commitments in that space too, because this is not the work we can do with 4, 5, or 10 people in our department. We needed to create that kind of ecosystem where we can actually tap into external teams also when help is needed. So love to see investment in that space. It's started to happen in Ontario. We'll love to see more and move it faster itself too. The last piece is, we haven't done a good job yet on providing some nice, good tools for online safety for our students. There's a huge opportunity part of that one too. How do we turn the online safety, digital citizenship, anything that's related to online threat into a muscle memory for kids? I think love to see a lot more invest in that space also, and a fully funded program, so it's not up to individuals, school district or a school or a teacher to find a tool that will work with that one itself. One of the things I've been floating around that one is, we needed to start a program, something like Cyber Monday. Every Monday, we talk about 10, 15 minutes about online safety, security, digital citizenship, pick any topic. ISTE has a whole framework on it. Implement something related to it, but we talk it out every single Monday. And over time, that discussion will become a normal, and it will be a muscle memory kind of concept in kids' heads. They will know exactly how to tackle when they start to see not so good content online. And if they are caught in a situation when they're online, they will know what steps to take to get themselves out of trouble itself too. So I think we needed to invest a little more on that side of thing too. So will be my 4 asks at this stage. If you ask me next year, I'm sure it will be something else, but this is what I feel is needed now.
No, those are good. Those are all really good ones too. Tell me, I always ask people about a leadership challenge. So leadership, the show's about that. I'm always highlighting all the great things. You've already talked about some of those awesome things, but can you just share? Could be recent, could be just something that's always stayed with you. A leadership challenge and maybe how you address that.
I think I look at the lens of more opportunities. I think challenges is there thrown our way as an opportunity. It's all up to you what you do about it. And leadership is also all about creating following. You're not a leader in my head if you don't have followers. And the follower doesn't mean they just like you who you are and the title you hold. The following is in form of your thinking, your practice, the things you wanted to implement, and they have strong input into it. So as collectively you start to work and create that motion. So to me, leadership is all about creating the followership. And when you have that following, you will be a successful leader itself too. When you start any role, when you're in the leadership role, people will question you. People will have a doubt. And how do you overcome is the biggest thing. You're going to find this really weird when I share this thing. When I got into this role, and one of the individuals, person was also in a leadership role, and he goes to me, Peter, do you think who you look like has an advantage or disadvantage to you as a leader? I'm a person of color, and I think that was his connection to it. Is that an advantage or a disadvantage? I was honest with him. I said, you know what? When I walk into a room, it's possible what I look like, who I am, people might have very low expectations. And when we start to actually tackle with the issue on hand, problems on hand, and tabling some of those creative ideas and thoughts and thinking outside the box is my opportunity to turn that tide around. I believe I have an advantage because I'm walking into a room with a low expectations. I'm walking out of that situation head up and with an advantage on my side itself too. And we just laughed it away. But it stayed with me. That person asked me this question because it was a very important question. And these things have stayed with me over time. And one time I had an opportunity to go with the leadership to a conference in Ottawa. And there was 5 of us going from Toronto School Board, and 3 of us were, I will just call people of color. We walked into a room, and I was just shocked by that we were the only 3 people in Ontario leadership who looked different. Then I looked towards another person who was with me. I said, this room scares me a bit. And the person goes, Peter, this is how Ontario educational leadership looks like. And to me, that told me that there's a lot of work to be done to bring diversity into education. And I have seen that work happen in the last 5 to 8 years. When I go to provincial conferences now, I look out and look up and say, who else is in leadership now? So these are some of the things I have seen. So how do you actually have diverse leadership at the table? And when you even work in a city like Toronto, which is very multicultural. And honestly, I tell my friends, the way city of Toronto looks like, that's how the world's going to be in 200 years. We are very diverse. Every single culture has their roots over here now. It doesn't matter what kind of cuisine and food you like, you can actually experience in the city of Toronto. When you have a city where 911 calls are taken in 145 plus languages, that's a very powerful city, very diverse itself too. So to me, when I look at the leadership itself, it's not just about the technology pieces and everything else you need to do. And being a person of color, sometimes I feel I have to do a little more extra because a lot of people are looking at me, they have eyes on me, and they also look at me that how can this person continue to excel and represent us wherever I sit. It's a topic in itself as a leader, diverse leadership is required in these organizations. So that's to me is one of the challenges, but to me, turn that into an opportunity to continue make a difference and bring some of the diverse thinking and thought process to these tables for better decision making.
Nice. Yes. Yes. So, Peter, you, as fine a job as you're doing, you can't do this job forever. At some point, somebody's going to have to replace you. So, when you look around at your high performing team as you describe them, and it might not be them, could be anybody. Maybe it's a young person that you meet at a conference from another district, and they think, "Boy, I'd like Peter's job one day. That'd be a great job to have." What advice would you give, particularly a young person who's maybe they're not that close to getting that job, but they one day they think, "I'd like to lead a big team like you." What advice would you give them?
I think few things has been always important to me as part of my work. The one is you want to create a little bit of a personal brand. What I mean by that, the work you do, the aura you create, and people should start to connect with that. I remember one time a new CIO walked into the door and they interviewed four people around one of the workloads we're having a big problem at. And every one of them in that room recommended my name. And I was the fifth person he called me and he goes, I have something for you and hopefully you can take on this workload. And he asked me, I said, yes, I'm in itself. But to me, that role was already ready for me because these four individuals have already commended me to that workload. Because I have worked with them, they understood what I bring to it. So I think when you start to create that kind of brand around the work you do is extremely important. Other people will become your salesperson or your marketing team, who you are, and which needs to be in there. Even when I got into this role, the outgoing CIO was very supportive of me, and part of the succession planning started to spend more time and cycles with me. And the senior managers I was working with were also always encouraging me, saying, Peter, you are going to be the next person. We're going to be supporting you. But that came all from the relationship networking and the branding over time I have created. So I think it's important to focus on your personal branding. Other piece is, I think leadership by work, not by position, is extremely important. Any task and role you're thrown into it, do it with a smile and do it to the best of your ability. Your work will always showcase who you are. And don't focus on the outcomes. Just focus on the work itself. Because if you start focusing on the results and the benefits you're going to get, guess what? You're working for the wrong thing. You should be actually focused on the work that's been given to you so it looks top notch. The results are very good. Everything else will follow. I think that's extremely important. The third piece is, in my mind, is all about emotional intelligence. You got to spend time to master the skills. You should know who you are, what your strong points are. Where are you, I will say, not so good? Where would you need help? So understanding yourself and then also connecting with individuals, I think extremely important. For a modern leader, I think emotional intelligence is extremely important practice to have part of them. So I think these are the three things I would encourage the individuals to work on it and as they become leaders. The techie part and everything else, that's part of the DNA. It will stay with you because we're working technology and IT. It's the other things that's going to make you a better leader.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, not your keyboarding skills, as good as those might be, Peter.
Got me in the
That's
door.
not what
Got me in the
got
door.
you in the door, but I think I think what you said, I think again, knowing you, Peter, your emotional intelligence and self-awareness, I'm just drawn to people who are self-aware. They recognize they're able to laugh at themselves, they're able to showcase their strengths in some way, but they make those connections with people. So like that's fantastic advice. You didn't get all the way here, Peter, without having wonderful people that you've been a part of your career and your life and in terms of just helping you. We all, no one gets here by ourselves. So I know it's hard, Peter, but I'm going to force you to pick one person today, just one that you just want to name today that you're grateful for. And I know if I ask you this question tomorrow, you can name me 10 more other people. But for today, see if you can identify one person, and ideally one person who might listen to this and enjoy having their name shared as somebody who's been impactful for you.
This is such a hard thing because so many people had influence on me. But the person who really gave me first opportunity as a leader, her name is Bev Kenwell. And she was the first female manager I had. Before I that has male leaders I worked with. And that was extremely important. And I'll share with you that over the years, I had more success in my work when I was working with female leadership than male. I don't know why, but it just happened. And we're still friends, we're still connected, and it's amazing. But she was one of the very first one who saw the leadership potential, and she took me from a role I was doing and put me into a leadership role. And she put me on this journey that started almost 20 plus years ago. So I'm very thankful to her to see what she saw in me and giving me that opportunity. Huge influence on my growth. Yeah.
Oh, powerful. Yeah, I concur. I've always enjoyed. I've had a lot of female leaders and bosses in my time, and to a person, they were all. I really liked working for them. Okay, so let's just wind down here. It's getting late in the day. I want to let you go here quick, but I want to ask you three quick questions just to get your thoughts on what are you reading lately? What's been on your your reading docket?
It is funny that I finished reading When Machines Becomes Customers. It was one of the books I picked it up at a Gartner conference, and I never looked at machines being our customers. So that was interesting model and concept. And I'm about to start into Energy Rising. It's by Julia DeGangi, and it's focused on the neuroscience of leading with emotional power. So again, just making that connection to emotional
Cool.
intelligence, I'm always drawn by it, saying, what else? What else can I learn and bring it back to my team to help them get better at it? So that's another piece of leadership. Every single day, every single week, I'm looking at it. What else I can bring to my team to help them to grow and be better at it. So I'm in the habit of sharing my learning with my team every single day. So whatever I've read today, I've seen, there's always one article or one blog, I see it, or a small paragraph I think is really beneficial. I queue it up for my team. So every 7 a.m., they actually receive an email from me and saying, you might enjoy this too. It was funny that after a March break, I took a break from sending those messages and I do regular one-on-ones with my direct reports and the managers layer too. And few of them highlighted, said, Peter, what happened? You're not sending those messages in the morning anymore. I said, I was just taking a break. I thought you guys might be bored out of it. And I said, I'll take a pause and then I'll restart it. But they said, we really enjoyed that because you really curate the material. It's never longer than a 3 minutes read, but we really enjoy it. It helps us to make connections. And I have seen individuals come back to me and say, Peter, that thing you sent about being low, a little bit on a depression side, I'm not feeling well. That story you shared with me really got me going again. It was helpful. It was very timely for me. So I started to see the benefits of sharing your learning. And that to me is extremely powerful. And the reading is one thing I really enjoy because you get to, to grow yourself with the wisdom and the wiseness from others who have put these thoughts together into a book or an article or a blog or a podcast.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I love that. I remember a presenter, his name is David Warlick. I saw him present a number of times. He's since retired, but he always started his presentation with, and I think he might have even used the phrase like, I was this many days old since I learned this. And he would talk a thing he learned that day that he didn't know the day before. So whether it was an article he read or something like that, which I thought beyond the content, it was just the modeling of I'm always learning. Like I'm never stopping. So I think that's added to your brand, Peter, for sure. So when you're not trying to be smart and grow your intelligence, but maybe you just want a break. Maybe you just need to sit back and say, okay, I need to watch something on TV or do something that's a little bit mindless. I don't have to engage quite so deeply intellectually. What would that be for Peter Singh?
Watching
Okay.
cricket, I love the game of cricket. And if I wasn't in technology, I would have been a cricketer. That to me is why I call the word first love. I played a lot of cricket. Now I watch a cricket too. But besides that, I love basketball too, and a big time Raptor fan. So that's another thing. Now we're not in playoffs, but a lot of Raptor DNAs in other teams. So I get to
Yeah. Yeah.
enjoy
Oh,
those
yeah.
individuals still. They're playing on other
Right.
teams, but they're amazing players. So that's my second passion.
Where do you watch cricket? Do you have special
Yeah, there are some
channels you
special
watch cricket?
channels you can stream online too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, and then time change wise, I don't know if you'd have to record or how that works, but
It's Sometimes it's late nights or early in the mornings. My wife can't understand why I'm getting up at 6 o'clock. You got up at 6 o'clock to watch the game? What's wrong with you? Can't sleep in? So I
but
just
also, don't cricket matches last like eternities sometimes?
there's now four different flavors of it. Some of them are like less than 3 hours, and
Okay.
there are some that last for the day, like 8 hours in a day. And the ones you're talking about was 5 days. There's very few of them. And that's the ultimate test, right? It's like running marathons, right? You're doing sprints or you're doing marathons. So that's a difference in there. But the short ones are almost like a baseball game now. So you're done in 3.5 hours. So it's more of an entertainment too, besides the game itself. But the one that's played over 5 days is the ultimate test of you being a true talent to really compete with all factors. Yeah.
Okay, so my last question is, if I were coming to now, do you live in Mississauga? I can't remember. Is that where
Yes.
you're at?
Yeah.
So whether it's Mississauga or Toronto, I don't care. You take your pick. But give me a hidden gem of a place that next time I come to Toronto, I call you up, Peter, and you say, Dean, here's where I'm going to take you. You probably don't know about this place, but so it could be a restaurant, it could be a park, it could be a museum, whatever. So one place that Peter Singh would take me to, so that a place I might not find otherwise.
It will be amazing to grab food from a shop in Scarborough. It's called the Roti Hut. And it's a mix of Trinidad and Guyanese cuisine. It's a family-run business, been there for 40 years. And every time I'm in Scarborough, I have to go there, grab a bite. Grab fresh food and go down to the Scarborough Bluffs. Sit down at the lakefront, enjoy the grounds, which have existed over, I will say, 60,000 years ago. The Scarborough Bluffs have its own history because how the glaciers moved and things like that. So I think it's historic grounds. People don't realize how historic they are. So that will be my good one. Grab the food. It's 401 and McCowan right off close to where the CTV studios are, and just drive down to the Scarborough Bluffs to enjoy the lunch.
Peter, next time in Toronto, maybe I'm gonna have to say, okay, Peter, time to go. We're gonna have lunch and do that together. That sounds
Definitely.
delightful.
Love to do that.
That sounds
Love
delightful.
to host you, sir.
Thank you so much, Peter, for your time and your insights. This was tremendous. I'm just grateful for your time. Kudos to all you do in what, as you said, not necessarily a challenging place, but a place with a lot of opportunities. That is Toronto District School Board. So thank you, Peter.
Definitely. Thank you very much, Dean, for hosting me. I really enjoyed our chat. All the best
All
to you.
right.
Cheers.